Hello and welcome, this is Sarah from the Wild Woodland Studio. Today I'm inviting you to paint some lovely coffee and croissants with me. Now in this tutorial you're going to learn several things which are really important as a beginner. So we're going to settle in, I'm going to take our time today, and hopefully by the end of it you're going to feel a lot more in control of certain aspects, and things will hopefully start to make a little bit more sense to you as well. So just to cover what we're going to learn, this practice is lots of things, but mostly we're going to look at preserving light areas and the importance of transparency of layers and how to build those layers up slowly, allowing each one to dry in between. We're going to practice our water control, how much water we have in our brush and how much we're applying, also our brush pressure as well. And this is all going to come together as we learn how to soften and blend edges. So those are the things we're going to be focusing on, and by building everything up really slowly it should give us a really lovely painting at the end of it. So what we need to do first is to mix our colours, and we need to have a look at the consistency exercise as well, so do make sure you've done this beforehand. I will touch on it as we go along, but if you've done this exercise that I have as a separate video, that will really help you as well. So for this tutorial I've got a number 4 and a number 6 brush, so I've got a sort of a fairly larger size which I can sweep areas of the croissants in, and then I've got a smaller brush which is going to be more, I'm using more of the tip for more detail and also to get into smaller areas. And if I need a really small one, I've got a number 2 ready just for those tiny little areas as well. And I always say it's a good idea to get your brushes dry and just have a little, whoops, throwing my paintbrushes away, is just sweep them over, you know, so you can grab, say, like a really big one and just sweep it over. And if you feel like you haven't got control of that, remember obviously it's going to go a bit smaller when it's wet, but if you have a practice with that, that just feels too big. It's lovely, but for the size that we're doing, this one feels a little bit better, and I know that it's going to splay out a little bit more like so. I think that's going to be really nice. So have a little dry run with a couple of brushes and pick what feels comfortable for you. So those are the ones I've got to one side. Now this is for my watercolour book, so I am using this set of paints here which come with the book, so everybody who's got the book can follow these tutorials and paint exactly as I am. As always, if you've got colours at home and you want to practice, feel free to mix and blend as you like. We're using cadmium yellow, cadmium red, ultramarine blue, chromite blue, yellow ochre and rose. Actually cut this bit because we're not going to use these at all. So I'm going to use a mixture of these paints here to mix our colours, and I've also got a little key which I will fill out so I can keep track of what colours I've decided to use. So all of that said, this is all ready and printed out for you. This is my original sketch, so I'll pop that to one side for a moment, and then I've got a blank piece of paper here and we can mix our colours. So we need croissant colours, so straight away we're definitely going to need the ochre, lovely yellow ochre. So let's just put some of this in. Now the more water you add to it, the more transparent it's going to go, and the lighter the consistency. So we're going to be down this end of a chart. I'll pop this up here while I'm talking as well. If you're a beginner, this will make more sense to you. If you're not and you've been dabbling a little while, always just good to have this in front of you just as a reminder. We're always practicing, we're always improving. Everybody's at a different place in their painting journey, so just go easy on yourself, especially if you're new. And if you're finding you're stuck, then just go back to basics. It could just be something really simple that you've fallen into a habit of doing, and by watching another tutorial you might think, I forgot I was doing that, or I should be doing this. So you never know. It's always good to just go back to something simple and practice. I've always got 2 glasses of water here as well, because we're going to be focusing on softening and blending quite a bit with our layers. You need to have clean for that, so you wash your dirty brush off with that, give it a really good, don't just gently dib, give it a really good so you can hear it, get rid of that paint, and then you'll be able to go in with your fresh, so you're picking up fresh water all the time to blend and soften your edges. I'll talk about that as we go along. Okay, so we've got yellow ochre. It's a perfect croissant colour really, isn't it? So just look at the colours on their own at the moment before we start mixing. And then we have a burnt sienna. And what you can do as well, so we know that's yellow ochre, that's the burnt sienna. Just make a little note so you don't get confused which is which. And we'll pick up some of the raw umber. Completely different tone. I do love raw umber, it's one of my absolute favourites. So that's the raw umber. This is just for you, you can have it as neat or tidy as you like. Now, we need to have a think what we're going to do, because this is a very sort of warm, toasty colour. It's a much warmer hue or warmer tone. This is a much cooler brown, so we need to have a think what we're going to do really. Now, obviously, if you use more consistency on your brush, so less water, more paint, it's going to get thicker, and that's how dark the croissants could be. And the same with your burnt sienna, just pick up a bit more. See, that's how thick that could be and how rich the tones. We're going to build up our tones, and we'll do that by gentle layering. So I'm just thinking on the hop here what I want to do, because these are so far apart. I'm thinking these ones are better for this subject. Now, if I add a little bit of blue into my burnt sienna, see, I get almost like a raw umber, but it's more natural and it matches this pair closer because it's a mix with this one. When you use a completely different colour on your palette, it doesn't always work, but if you keep mixing your own colours, you have a better chance of it looking right. And blue is opposite the sort of orangey colours in the paint chart, so if you use that, it's always going to knock the vibrancy out of that colour because they're opposite on the paint chart. So if we add a bit of blue into the yellow ochre, we get this sort of like a dirty colour version of it. It's more earthy, and that's toning it down as well. So that could be one of our tones in there. If we have a little bit of the yellow and we take a bit of the brown, we get again something in between. But if we forget this one and we keep mixing from these, do you see how they're all going to start to work quite nicely together? So it's just a case of what shades we want to go to really. I'm liking these two, so before you forget what you did, this is the ochre plus ultramarine blue, and then what did I do? I put some of those two plus, what did I do? I can't remember what I did now. I put the, that's the trouble with talking to the camera and mixing at the same time. So I did the ultramarine and that's that one, that's it, and then I put that into there, and this is a mix of that is mixing this colour, which I didn't write down, you see. That's what I need to write it down. Let me just double check. This is why I should write it down as I go. I think it was the burnt umber plus the ultramarine. Which gave me that. Did I just have a bit more blue in it? Yeah, I just had a bit more blue in it and it went there. Right, so this one is burnt umber, no, burnt sienna, beg your pardon, plus ultramarine blue, that's right. And then to get that colour, it was my mix of burnt sienna and ultramarine blue plus my ochre and blue, and it gave me this lovely light tone. Oh my god, get there in the end. See how much in a pickle you can get if you don't write things down. That's why I wanted to add this element into the video, because you could sit and do lots of swatches, but the danger is you think, oh God, how did I get that one? And you've just seen me do it actually on camera. I don't hide anything. If I've made a mistake, I'll own it. But you get to a certain age and your brain starts to go and you think, what did I do? So this is a combination of both of them two together. So I really like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a fresh chart and we're going to do this again. Because, ooh, keep that away from my drawing. Do you know what? I'm just going to move my drawing completely away. Having one of those days where I might just make a mess. Okay, so let's do it as we go. Right, so we've got plain yellow ochre, okay, which we know is that colour. And then if we water it down, we're going to get a lovely soft, but it's still quite light. And then obviously the more we put in, there we go. Let's do a nice little swatch like that, and then we're going to see the gradient of it as well. And we've got the burnt sienna. So again, I'm not going to put the raw umber on here at all because we've decided we're not going to use that, and that is throwing me a little bit as well, having that on there too. So let's get rid of that. That'll make things easier. So here comes our lovely light burnt sienna, which is just such a lovely sort of roasted colour. We'll get a bit in the middle, and then we'll put a really strong consistency on the top, which is like our milk and cream. This is like the very final touches when we're making very defined marks with hardly any water at the end. But mostly we're interested in these layers here, these light layers first. Okay, so they're the two neat colours, yellow ochre, burnt sienna. Now we start mixing. Okay, I'm going to, shall I remove that, or no? Actually, I'll be all right. So now we're going to do yellow ochre. Let's just start fresh. Yellow ochre, and then we have rinse. Get that off there. A bit of ultramarine blue. Now obviously, depending how much blue you put, it's going to affect the colour of it, isn't it? So write it down straight away. So this is ochre plus, I'll just put B for blue because that's the only, we're only going to use blue. Just put that there. And then add a bit of water. Just come up to meet it in the middle so you get a nice little softening there, slowly bringing that colour down so you can see how nice it looks when it's really faded. Okay, so we like that. That looks like a nice sort of crunchy croissant sort of colour, and these are nice for sort of the more toasted elements. So we want to get somewhere that's nice in between these two, I would say. So then we had the burnt sienna and the blue. Give it a good mix there. Going to go in with a bit more blue. This is really watery as well, so we've got to remember we could get that much richer if we wanted to. Okay, so that is burnt sienna plus blue. Okay, so let's make a richer mix of that. Get quite a bit on your brush. Okay, really get a lot of that water off. That's feeling a lot thicker. There you are. So it's the same thing, but less water. You see that lovely toasted colour we have there? And that is going to work really nicely with the burnt sienna, because it is burnt sienna. We're using the same ultramarine blue, the same burnt sienna, and we've got the yellow ochre. So depending how we mix it, sort of those really light shades there, that is what we're going to, move that out of the frame, that's what we're going to focus on, those really light colours there, to start to build up the colours of our croissant. So that's what we've got to mix. So we've got our chart. We can't go wrong again because we've written them down. And then we've also got to do the same for the coffee cup. Now this is why I've got, let's keep this as our neat one, and this can be our scrappy one. Yeah, I'm going to put this on a bit of tissue because that's wet. I just want to use the back of it. Now, chromite, mostly the cobalt chromite, like 70%, and then with just like a 30% of yellow in there, it's going to give me a gorgeous turquoisey teal colour, which you know I love. If you know me, you know I love this colour. Look at that. It's like a beautiful sea green colour. That's going to contrast beautifully with our colours. So again, if we water this down, this is the beauty of watercolours, and they are designed to be transparent. It's really important that we learn this, because a light transparent layer is absolutely essential for building up your layers gradually, because this is going to give all your paintings a natural and soft appearance. So this first layer is really, really important. It's going to set the whole foundation for our picture. So we need to be able to learn to control this, and it's very easy to do. You just keep playing with it. You can do really long lines of this and just gradiate the whole thing down. Keep adding more pigment, making it richer, going up that way. You could have a whole journal practice just doing this. Take your time to do it, because as soon as you've managed to get the feel for this, you're going to find everything else comes a lot easier. So what we could also do with this is we can mess with the amount of yellow we've got in it to give us different tones, and we go to a completely different green. So that could be the colour of our coffee cup. And I want to get like a bit of a patina going on there. So I'm thinking, why not mix in with the yellow ochre instead of the cadmium yellow? Let's have a little play and see what that gives us. And we've got to change our water in a minute, because look at it. What does this give us? Ooh, this is like a sort of a sea green. Oh, I like that. That's lovely. This feels like more of a family to this than this. This has gone very sap green. This is more like a summer garden colour. This is like a murky green, and I could see these two shades in a coffee cup. It's like an Italian espresso cup, and it's going to give a lot more like a patina, because this all follows. And if we put more blue in that, we layer, we can see that that's going to sit over that really nicely. I'm liking that. I think we're going to go with those colours. So let's mix them up properly again. Keep that on there because I'll make a mess otherwise. Okay, right, get rid of that there. Change your water. Okay, so we've got the chromite. I'll call it chromite because we've got blue over there, which we know is ultramarine blue. We've got the chromite here. So chromite plus cadmium yellow gave us the nice teal colour. And then we did chromite with ochre. Where does the H go in there? O-C-H-R-E, that's it. I had a moment then. So cobalt chromite with the cadmium yellow, and you want more blue than you want yellow if you're going to get that nice teal colour. Okay, That's the colour we got, depending on how much yellow you put in. Okay, that's that lovely colour there. Add more blue in it to take it to the stronger sort of bluey side of things. So that's with more blue in it. And then of course we can go chromite and with the yellow ochre. And that gave us that lovely murky sort of green colour. Just to encourage it to come into that damp area. And if you just rinse as you go, rather than pulling it, it will very naturally move down for you. I love that. Now, see, this is what I love about watercolours. See that little bit of darker blue I did there? It's touched and it's pooled into here, and that is the most beautiful granulating colour. It's got the bitchiness of granulation. Absolutely stunning colour that is. I'm loving how that is mixing. So I can imagine that on my coffee cup if I have things and just ever so gently allow them to touch sometimes. So some of it will control in layers, allowing it to dry. Others we're going to allow them to run a little bit, because that is just too beautiful not to play with. Okay, so these are my croissants and this is my coffee cup. Have a little practice, watch this over, have another go, and play with the colours that you've got. I'm using these colours, but have a little play with the ones that you've got, and you can also obviously add more yellow, more blue, and do lots of different tones and pick what you like. I'm keeping this quite straightforward because I want to have a little play while we actually get onto the picture. But yeah, okay, so that's planning your colours. So once you've had a go with that and you've got something like this as a reference, then we're going to dive straight into our coffee and our croissants. Okay, so we're ready to start painting our croissants now. So I'm going to go in and do the lightest area first of each croissant. We're going to do the exact same thing on each 3 croissants. We're doing it in the same order. So we want a really nice watery yellow ochre. This is our very first layer. Now with the first layer it's really important that we avoid too much paint and too much water, and we keep everything light and balanced, and then that's going to set that nice foundation, because the very first layer, that's what everything else is going to be built upon. So we don't want it too wishy-washy, but we also don't want it too bright. So just nice watered down. I'm going to add a bit more. Remember, it's always easier to add, harder to take away. Now I'm going to leave some areas completely light, so we're going to leave the paper dry, and I'm going to softly blend around them. Now when I say I'm going to softly blend around them, let me just do a little demo here. So what I'll do is this is going to be my dirty water, so I rinse from here and I pick up clean from here. So I rinse from there, okay, and then I would go in and pick up some clean fresh, because my paint will probably be dirty in a while. And then all I'm going to do is just sort of go around the edge of the paint that I've just laid down and just soften it, you see? So it kind of dissolves and disappears instead of having a hard line like there. So I'm just softly. Now the trick to this is you don't want to flood it. You don't want too much water on your brush. You're just cleaning it and you just want it sort of touch damp, so there isn't really any water coming off when you do that. But you don't want it bone dry either. So if you're doing this and drying, it's too much. You need to have a decent amount. So I would just say just a couple of dabs. That's it. And you will get to feel how many work for you. Because some people press really hard when they dry. Other people just tickle it and they're leaving a lot more water on their brush. And this is where you need to practice, so that you get the feel for how much is just enough. So you just want a soft sheen on your brush in order for it to soften. See, now that was quite dry, that bit, but because I've just added the enough amount of moisture, not water, just enough moisture. Can you see that little shine? There's no big puddles, and you see that softened like the first one. This will work better because I got there quicker, but you can do it if it's dry, but you just have to work on it a bit more, and you're more likely to have like a watermark when you add more water back in. So I hope I'm not worrying you. If you're really new, I'm just trying to show you advanced sort of technique that once you master it, you're going to be away. You're going to be so happy with your results, and that's where I want to get you. So just demonstrating that, so hopefully that's made that a little bit clearer what we're going to do. So we've got our paint, we're happy with the consistency, so we're going to go in. Now I'm going to film this as well on the side angle, and I'll do a little bit of a close-up with that as well. So what we're doing is we're just going to lay that first layer on our first croissant. It's going to be where the areas are dark, and it's also going to be where they're light, because this is going everywhere, but I just want to avoid where the light is hitting each croissant. So I'm imagining it's all along the top bits here, all along the top, but this one's got a big hump, so the light is going to catch around the edges, and this isn't quite so light, but I'll put a bit of light on here so it makes sense. So we want like a nice base coat all along here. I'm just using a gentle pressure. I'm pressing down, so I'm not just using the tip of my brush here, I'm using the side sweep of my brush. It's going to help me apply, and then I do a little dappled effect, dab in the top, so I get a nice quick randomness of my brush marks, and that's going to help me to allow a little bit of light, so I don't have to think about it too much. I find if I work quickly, my brush kind of helps me do the work. Okay, so cover a bit more there. Want to avoid filling in all the edges at the moment, because we want it nice and natural. Okay, so that's it for croissant number 1. Croissant number 2. Again, so we're going to leave some little pockets of light. Now try and think, when you put your light in, you want more at this stage than what you're actually going to end up with, because you're going to narrow it down when you come to do all your blending of your edges. So leave a little bit more now than what you think you're going to need. Just leave a few little slices there of light. Okay. Croissant is such a lovely study for this sort of a tonal study and application study. It's a really good one for all over, because you've only got to worry about one colour really, but a variation of tones. Gone flying out of my line there. If you do that, just pick up some water and just, you can always just dab that bit as well. Everyone can make mistakes. I make plenty. For all you newbies out there, or people who've been painting for a while, let me just break an illusion. There isn't anyone who paints perfect. I would challenge anyone who said that. I think we're always learning. You always find a new way to do something. And everyone can make mistakes. So don't worry if you think you've got to get to this perfect stage. No, you don't. You just need to enjoy it. That is the most important thing. And as you get better, yes, you'll probably enjoy it more, and the frustrations will leave you. And that's your reward for the practice that you put in. So just keep going. Do not get despondent. If things are going wrong, don't worry. They're all fixable, because they're probably really common annoying beginner mistakes. Okay, so we're going to take our brush, which we've taken most of the moisture off, and we're just going to softly blend some of these edges. See, some of them we want as a line. Just have a little practice, and you should just see it just dissolve. It's almost like it just dissolves into the paper. If it's not, you may have a bit too much water on your brush. If your water's pooling back into it, then you've got too much water. And I'm just using the edge of my brush. I'm sort of doing like a little circular motion. I call it smooshing. My students, anyone who's been to a class with me will know that I call it smooshing, because it's like just smoosh it. Softly smooshing. Okay, so we're not doing all of it because some of it's dried, but just practice on a few little, maybe like some nice big sections that you can see. We're going to do it more on the next layer. This is so light it doesn't matter, and we want those sort of angular lines of light, because that's how it's going to hit the croissant, because it's all bumpy and it's not like it's a rounded apple where you're going to get a specific shape of a shine. This is all over the place because the croissant is all, you know, all the pastries, different levels. Okay, so that's your first step. So if we look at our little chart that we did, we've started with the yellow ochre and we've done a really watered down version. So we're just down here on our chart, and then we can intensify by just using the same yellow ochre and just using it a bit more neater and less diluted. So we're going to add this sort of tone to it. And we've also got this nice in between. So I'd quite like to do this in between one next, because it's quite light, but we're going to a slightly different shade because we're adding a bit of the ultramarine blue. So let's mix that up next. By just taking a really nice amount of time to do this practice, you're just going to get better and better at it. Now, how much blue we add is going to affect the tone. So let's just add a bit on the side to start with in case it's too much. So just add a little bit of it in. Our all important tester paper. Now that looks a bit of a murky colour to me. So it needs more yellow. So mix the whole thing in. Much nicer. See, that was going a bit like insipid greeny yellow. We don't want that. We want a nice croissant colour. So when we start to add our nice toasted tones to it as well, it's going to be lovely. But this is just like a nice in between. So I just want to do a little bit of this where we start to add a little bit of shading. The most important thing I will keep harping on about is you're not going to get there in one swoop. We have to build the layers. We have to go bit by bit. I know you have to be patient, and I'm sorry. I'm not patient really as a person. I like to get things done, and I get excited, and I think I want to get it done. So I know it's hard, but we have to do this. Make sure this is sort of touch dry before you carry on. If you've added tons of water, just wait till it's dry. There's no hurry. Just wait till it's dry, and then pick up. So let's start. We'll start with the top, so I don't put my hand in anything. If you're a lefty, you might want to work this way round. Forgive me, I always forget the lefties out there that are watching as well. Do it that way. And also keep your a piece of paper here, wherever your hand is, because I don't know how we do it, but we end up with paint and you end up dabbing it in. We don't want to do that. Okay, so just start in a little shadow area, and let's just add a little bit at a time. Now, it's important to talk to you here. Can you see that that's transparent? It's not thick. Where's my chart? It's not thick like this. We're still down here. We're more like a coffee consistency. Sorry, Mabel's decided to have a scratch. Right, so now if you rinse off that paint, we've just done a little bit. Now I'm going to show you the blending. So you want it touch dry. You don't want it bone dry. So just a couple of dabs, take the excess off. So it's just damp on your finger. And then just a little bit of circular movement and just soften that edge. Now as your brush goes into it, it might move the paint back a bit. Don't worry, you want to be able to just gently pull it back and forth just a little bit. Don't go pushing it around, don't push right into it. You're just looking to catch the edge, but sometimes you have to adjust a little. See, catch the edge. And you see you've just got that lovely softness now. That's fine, that's all I want you to do. We're going to do a little bit at a time. So let's just add a couple of, see it's quite damp in there now. We'll let that be a nice line there. So let's do a couple of lines here, nice sort of big chunky bits. That's going to give you something to soften. Let's just come right up here, okay? Right, rinse, dab, don't go crazy, don't press it hard and don't dry too much. It's just touch damp. And just catch the edge, do you see it? It's just softening. Rinse and dab, rinse and dab. It's constant. You will forever be doing this with your watercolour. It's just like breathing. You just end up doing it by habit. Your painting will become really instinctive. I promise. It will come in time. Okay. There we go. Just soften those edges. There. Now I don't want to over soften too much. I'm just demonstrating with this nice colour here. When we do the next layer, I want some nice hard lines. So this is a really nice practice as well. If you're someone who's been over blending everything and you feel the need to soften, because once you start, you kind of do get the bug to soften everything. So this is going to be a really nice practice. You can do your little bit of softening, get it out of your system. And then you can go in and do some of those nice defined hard edges that you're scared of. Because some people are, and I've had people saying that to me, that they get really nervous. And they just feel the need to like quickly just blend it to make it okay again. So don't worry, this is a good one to practice with. So let's go in and do a couple of hard lines here. Okay, so notice that as I'm doing it, I'm not going into here, I'm just staying on the edge. And as soon as I get that little dissolve magic moment, I stop, I leave it alone. So do a little bit more here. It's weakening my mixture now, so less to soften. So let's do a few more edges there. And also, my paper here is becoming really damp, so it's less effective, and you've got to watch that. Okay, so just soften. I've got to go backwards and forwards on the edge of that one till it sort of gave way and submitted for me. There we go. And then we're going to need to mix some more. Okay, so we're going to get rid of that because that's all soggy. It's no good at all. Okay, so I've got my paper towel, got fresh ready. Now we want to mix up the same again. So yellow ochre. Give it a good rinse off. Dab. Bit of ultramarine blue. Again, it's the tricky bit because you need to do the same as you did before. We mixed all the yellow in. I think I've put less blue in this one. That's not bad. It's going to dry a bit lighter. I think I have just a touch more blue in there. Again, you will start to feel it as you mix. You think, I think I just spent a little bit longer on, just a second longer on there, so I picked up more. I think it's more that colour. They may vary slightly. It doesn't matter. As long as you're about there. Okay. So let's put some of these nice lines back in here. Now the shape of your brush strokes are going to help you to get shape and form into your paintings. So you don't want to do straight lines all the time. Bend your brush. Okay, so you can see already just by those little marks there, he's starting to look like he's a domed shape. So he's a he. Okay, let's build up a little bit more over here. See, I'm always staying away from this light, but isn't that light starting to pop out now because we've got another tone on the table? See, it just starts to work. Right, now, let's soften some of this, but not all of it. Just soften that top bit there. We're going to need some lines, because I've softened and demonstrated all this. It has softened quite a lot. I want some of it to be defined. Okay. There we go. See, I've had to go up and down on that one a little bit because it was starting to dry. You don't want to overwork it because then you get funny marks. If you do overwork something, just stop. The second your brain is saying, oh, I think I'm ruining this, just stop. Let it dry. That's your best chance to sort it out. Just let it dry. Stop messing with it. And you'll find that you could probably fix it by putting a whole other layer over the top. You glaze it, problem solved. Just don't keep scrubbing away at it. It's one of the worst things you can do. Okay, so you see we've got this lovely like tone coming here. Let's do a little bit on the inside of this one as well. Now we're building layers, but we're also glazing, because glazing is when you've got thin transparent layers building on top, and each layer you do sits on top of the other one and it intensifies the colour, and that's what we're doing, is we're building it up. Very controlled, we're behaving very well, we're being very good, we're letting it dry, we're not fiddling with it. See, this is still a bit damp, so I'm not going to go back into that now. So what we're going to do is we're going to mix up the next colour, but we're going to let this completely dry. Please let it dry so that you get the very best painting possible. Okay, so have a little break, let it dry. Do not use a hairdryer. It's better if you just let it settle. Go make a cup of tea or something. I'm always telling people to have a cup of tea. That's what I have, endless cups of tea. We're going to use the burnt sienna next with the blue, because we've got to mix up this tone. So this is more of a cooler colour and this is a warmer brown, because we've got more blue in this, which is cool, which has toned it down. It's made it a cooler colour, like a shade colour, whereas the burnt sienna is what we call a warm colour, because it's just neat, it's warm, same as the yellow ochre is warm. But when we start to get adding blue in, it turns it into a shadow colour, and then we call them cooler colours. Just to touch on that as well, a little bit of watercolour talk. If you've come across that and you think, oh, I don't know what cool and warm colours are. Yeah, the cool colours is what you'd think of as in shadow, but it's normally when you've added that colour that's opposite the colour wheel and it's cooled it right down. So that's what we're going to do with the burnt sienna in a minute, once this is all dry. Okay, so let's get this colour mixed up while we're waiting for it to dry. See if it dries in time for us, otherwise we'll just have to give it a minute. Now I've got quite a bit of water on my palette here, so it's a bit watery. That's okay, because in terms of consistency, we are still around the coffee, so it is watery. You just don't want it all this tea, because this is really weak. We need a bit more paint in there. So make sure you're not too watery, but it's got to sit on top of the next layer and start to build. But you still want to be able to see through it, so you want that sweet spot where it's still a little bit transparent. You're not building up to sort of an opaque where you can't see the paper anymore. You need to be able to still see the paper so that you can see this layer underneath, and then they can shine like a nice sort of stained glass window effect, if you like. So better if you're more watery than too thick. So this is your neat sienna, which we're going to use on the final application. We're going to use watery tones first to build it up slowly. The tonal values, they need to be transparent so that they can just slowly intensify with every layer. That's why we need to avoid going too dark too early. So blue. Don't know how much blue we're going to need. We can have a little play while we're waiting for it to dry. Now this is going to be a little bit tricky if we have to remix this to match. So I'm hoping I've got enough to go around all my croissants. Look at how watery that is. That's really, really watery. So where we've put this colour on, if we go over it, it's the beauty of a little swatch card, a little test card, we can see what it's going to do before we apply it to our croissants. That's nice. It's a nice glaze. We're changing colour, but it's not going to completely sit on top of it. We've got that colour, that glow coming from the lovely yellow tones. It's still going to glow through that, which is what I want. How are we doing? I think, right, we're a bit damp up here. I'm going to leave him till last. This one's nice and dry, so I'm going to start with this one. Okay, so deep breath, and we'll go straight into it. I'm going to film a bit from the side as well. Taking off a bit of excess there. You can see that was quite watery there. I don't want a big swimming pool there, and I don't want a puddle. I also want you to start experimenting with making a few little sort of splotch marks. So a few dabs and then just a sort of a press down and a bit of a mark. You want them to be random. Don't overthink it. Just do a few little splotches. And this is going to help put some nice texture into your painting as well. Okay, now because this is all in shadow here, do make sure you've got a nice clean edge. You've got that brown all the way down to the bottom there. Now this bit's kind of sticking out, so I'm going to do that bit in like a shadow. Okay. Resist the temptation to go over it. And you can always dab a bit off, because I want it lighter up the top. Okay. I'm going to go up to the top one. So now we're going over the colour that we had before. But when that dries, you'll be able to see through all those layers. All that work we've done will still be coming through. So don't be scared to go over marks that you've done. It's all part of building it up. Change the direction of your brush as well, so you get different marks with it. That can also help, because it's all sort of crumbly pastry up there, so you don't want it too neat. You need to sort of be confident in your marks. We'll just have fun with it. If you don't feel confident, just think of it as you're playing. You're learning and you're playing. It's just a croissant. Don't worry too much about it. Now, this is sort of a stippling, but very sort of fat stippling. Normally it's lots of tiny little marks. But what you're doing is you're building your layers up to create like you can do this like on a skin of an orange, or this is how you would do it. So when this dries, we'll put another glaze layer over it, and another one, and then you'll still see all these gaps, and because you've got these gaps, you're going to get this lovely two-tone working, where you've got all these different colours going on underneath. and it should look really nice at the end. Remember, you're not putting every single mark in now, so don't overdo it. Try to hold back a little bit. Save yourself some space for when you pick up your lovely rich burnt sienna, because you're going to be using that to go over and do some lovely marks as well. So save yourself a few of those. If you overdo it now, it leaves you less room for later. And when you mix up with your palette, make sure you're mixing all of it, because it tends to separate and you might find darker bits and lighter bits. Give it a good mix up so you're getting everything on your brush. That way it should stay consistent with what you're applying. Just another little tip. Neaten that little edge there. Okay, I'm going to stop there because I can feel myself trying to do all the little lines. See, I always fall into that trap as well, that's why I'm saying it. You haven't got to do everything on this layer. Stop, resist. Okay, you definitely need to step back at this point and let it completely dry, because you've got quite a few things going on there. Take a little photograph as well of your work at this point, because you'll be able to see the tonal changes throughout it. So take a photograph, take a little break, and come back when this is completely dry before we carry on. While I'm waiting for this to completely dry, I'm going to just mix up the first layers for my coffee cup here. Now, we used the chromite blue and the cadmium yellow, and we got this lovely teal colour. So this is what we're going to work on. She says going into the ochre. I won't cut that, I'll just leave that in to show you that I do stupid things sometimes. Okay, there we go, chromite. Got a lovely chromite blue, and then we're going to add cadmium yellow. Now that's gone the nice sort of bright green, and what we want is the teal, so we need to put some more blue in it, and then we have this lovely, lovely teal colour. If it's still not there, a bit more. And then when we want to water it down, it becomes more of that lovely sea colour that we like. And just add a bit of water into your palette here and pick up a bit of this green and just water it down, because you need a really light tone of it, and then you've got the consistency of this. So give it a good mix so you get one even consistency, so you can see what each one is individually and how it's going to appear on your cup. So we want the really watered down one first. This is our base coat. So we're going to be really patient and we're going to do this in bits. So I want some nice light on the rim of my cup. So I'm going to purposefully leave a little gap, and then it can come all the way down here. So where I leave complete white and where I want other light areas to be, this is my light that I'm putting underneath. And then when I put other layers on top, this becomes my light, but it's not the bright white of the paper, it's this lovely light tone that I'm putting in here. So we're doing the work now for later. I'm just dabbing a bit off of my brush because there's quite a lot of water there and I don't want it out of control. Now you see the light source is coming from here, so you can't see the edge of the cup, and that's exactly how we're going to leave it, and that's the light there is going to be phenomenal later on. It's going to be beautiful. So we can pretty much fill in the rest of our cup here completely. Because there's nothing else that's lighter on the cup than what we're putting on now. But the bits that were going to be much lighter were these which we've left. Now that we've got them in, we can see. So as we come up to the other handle, we've got to do the same thing again. We need to leave a little bit of light on this handle. It's going to be really pretty if we leave a bit here. Just going to come up the edge like that, just tease it just a little bit. And I just want you to ever so softly just smoosh the end, just soften it a bit so that we don't have a line there, just make it completely disappear. Do a little Houdini on it. Okay, beautiful. That's where you're going to stop. And that's all I want you to do. That's the very first layer done. Nice and controlled, and that's exactly what we want. Okay, so I'm just going to remove this out of here because it's the darker ochre, which I don't want, and instead, fresh paper towel. Haven't changed my water yet because it's not murky, that's absolutely fine, and I'm using the exact same colour. What I want to do now is show you a nice glaze. So we're going to take the yellow ochre. Again, we want something transparent, so it needs to be quite thin, quite watery and diluted down. Okay, and then we're going to add a little bit of yellow to it. So we're going to give it a little bit of a bit of zest, a bit of brightness to it. And we'll test it first. So we're going to go over these colours like so. It's a really watery wash, but that's going to give it a nice golden colour. And we're literally just going to go over all of our lines, avoid the white highlights, but just go over everything else. After glazing our croissants, these are all now nice and dry, completely everything's bone dry, and I'm going to turn my attention to the little coffee cup now. So we've got these lovely patina green sort of teal colours. So I just want to mix up a few different shades of this. So we've got the original that we mixed up. So that's our darker shade for the shadows. So we need something a little bit in between, but brighter than the base. So if we just remix, so take some chromite, and then a little bit of the yellow. And if it starts to go that sort of sea green colour, we'll just take it back a little bit, adding in a bit more of the blue. Okay, so water it down a bit. Yeah, so we've got something in between. It might be nice if we sort of add a little bit of the yellow in, the ochre, and that will give it sort of like that patina, that aged vintage look. So we could drop some of the yellow in as it's drying, so we have that kind of tone, and it's almost like a reflection of the croissant in there. Yeah, I'm going to go for that. So we can practice a little bit of wet in wet and charging the colour in as well. So let's go with the lighter tones first, and we'll just slowly build upon what we've got here. So remember I said we wanted to leave some of this because this is our base layer, and then we're going to build a little bit on the top, and we'll slowly create some nice tonal values building up onto this mug. So I'm going to go on the inside. I want to stay off the rim and allow that base coat to be the light on the rim. Now, how much you pick up on your brush and how much you apply is going to affect your overall look. So try to be a bit conscious if you're loading your brush. I'm going to do a bit of a shadow there. Take off the excess. I just want to blend that edge so it sort of disappears like that around the edge. Then I just want to charge a little bit more in here and let it run. Just want that to be a little bit bolder because that's in the main shadow. I'm going to do a little bit of a shadow here. I'll pick up a little bit of the ochre coming across, and I'm just going to put a glaze over the base layer there and just let it run a little bit as well. So I'm just going to be slowly adding layers as I go here. I'll put a little bit of music on for you, so enjoy. That's all I'm going to be doing, is using these, and we'll just slowly build up the layers. So we've now got our tones building up nicely on the coffee cup. We'll leave that to dry for a little bit, let it settle, and now we literally just need one final layering for the finest details, the darkest little marks and definition that we want to add, but we'll leave that till the end. So I'd like to mix up the reflection colour and also the coffee as well. So for this I'm going to use raw umber, so a nice rich mix, because we don't need this watery, we want this nice and rich. Like so. Oops. And then instead of ultramarine blue, which we mixed for this, I'm going to use a bit of the cobalt chromite to turn this into more of a shadowy blue. Okay. We water that right down. I think we need a bit of the blue in there. Add a little bit of the yellow as well. There. So we need quite a watered down. So we've got the teal, so it's watered down this, then we'll add in the raw umber in. And that's going to be quite a good reflection colour, I think. I'm just thinking if while it's still wet, we can drop in some of the reflection teal colour as well. And then next to it, we can have a nice rich raw umber coffee colour. Make that a bit richer. We'll add some of the blue into it, just without the yellow to turn the sort of teal. Nice and rich. More brown. I want it to keep that sort of warmth in it as well. Just go backwards and forwards till we get the right colour. That's quite a nice dark coffee colour. Yeah, I'm happy with that one. I'm going to add this to my chart. Okay. Add this to our chart here as well. And make a note what we did. So this is raw umber plus chromite blue. And then this one this is the yellow plus the chromite plus raw umber, but it's more watery for the reflection. So we have reflection and then we have our richer coffee colour. Add a bit more brown back into that because I've just used some of that up just to bring that back to where it was. Okay. So once you've got your colours ready, I want to do this sort of a bit wet in wet. So I'm just going to pre-wet this bottom bit, the reflection bit. And then we're using this watery mix here. This is our reflection, so we'll get that nice crisp line in first. Dab off a bit of extra water. Then I want to drop in some of the teal that's reflecting. in my coffee. Okay, let it dry, and then we can go in with the nice rich chocolate, and then you'll get that nice crisp line. Don't be tempted to do it now, it'll probably just end up a little bit messy. We could use some of this colour, and we can go and add in a little bit of shading with the reflection colour. We can glaze this over, put some defined marks so it's sort of shadows bouncing around. That's quite nice. We can add this in here just to give it a little bit more depth. Just make those corners pop a little bit more. There, add some interesting shapes to the mug. Darken the handle a little bit. You don't want things to get muddy, but it's nice to add some extra shading over the top. Okay, I think that's enough. Right, so we'll leave that to dry. So let's turn our attention to the croissants. Now, we need to, what I would normally be doing at this point is I would be mixing up and starting to add the first sort of tones to the background here as well. We've got a tray and we've got sort of paper, almost like a napkin, paper napkin, that they're sitting on. I haven't added these tones in yet because I wanted these to be really crisp and be the main event really, so that we focus all the detail on those. And I thought once I get all the detail in, then we can then do the background, because we know we need to pare it down. Otherwise you run the risk of making one thing too bright. So if we did this too bright, then we've got to keep building the croissants, and I might not want to go that far with them. So that's the reason why I haven't done any of this background, in case you're wondering. So I'm going to finish the croissants first, and then we'll we can balance things best, if that makes sense. Okay, so we've got our burnt sienna. We'll need to remix some of our croissant colours. So we've got a lovely rich burnt sienna on its own, which we haven't used yet, so we're definitely going to use that on this layer now. And then we also need to make that a little bit richer as well, so we need a nice shadow colour of that. I'm just going to pop it in here. I know I've got a bit of yellow, but that won't make much difference. So if we use the ultramarine blue, and then that's going to give us a nice natural shadow. We'll see how dark we can get this. That's a nice, and then we've got the burnt sienna on its own. You see it's much brighter, so when you add the blue it knocks it back and gives you a nice shadow colour. So these would be the last tones. I do actually want it a bit darker than this one, so try to avoid using black if I can. Let's just add some more blue into it, get a bit of a richer mix going, see how dark we can get it. So add in more blue. There you go. That is giving you a really nice rich shadow colour. So we shouldn't need to use black. That should be really nice, more natural. We'll go with those three. So just mix another of your burnt sienna with some ultramarine blue, but not as much as that one, and then you've got your three. Make sure you've got enough as well. Does that match that middle one? Yes. Okay. So you've got the lovely burnt sienna just on its own. So let's go in with some of these first, and then I'm going to be adding the slightly darker one, and then we'll add the really dark for the darkest parts. So I'm going to turn the commentary off and you can just paint along. So I'm going to leave my croissants there. I think they've had quite a lot of work on them. And I think I'll be able to see better once I put the background in as well. If it does need any tweaking, but I think I've put quite a lot of detail in there. So now I want to pick up the coffee colour that we mixed. And we can paint in our coffee. Again, I want to drop a little bit wet in wet with this. So it needed to be completely dry so I could get a nice crisp edge on the coffee. Now you could leave a little bit of a highlight there, which would be quite nice. So you've got the reflections of the in your coffee. You could just leave a few purposeful little light patches like so. Just using the very tip of the brush here, really controlled. It's not watery. Very, very controlled here because you want it nice and sharp like so. You can drop a little bit of the green in and let it do its thing. There we go. If you want to intensify it, you can do. Drop a little bit more of the brown in. I feel like I want mine to be just a little bit, oh, I've wobbled a bit. It's the risk of going back in. So you're charging in a little bit more of the colour now just to intensify it a little bit. I wobbled over this edge. I've got the tiniest little bit that's gone inside the rim of my cup. On the outside of my the cup, I mean. I'm just going to fix that. Eyesight is not what it used to be. Okay, that's fine. I've pushed it back and then I'll just wait for it to dry and then I will just nip in just the tiniest little bit there to give me that nice hard edge. These things happen. Now while that's drying, I also want to do like another coat on the reflection because I don't think it's bright enough. Again, try and be steady hand if you can. I'm going to go right up to the edge and then I'm just going to let it touch. I don't really want it to pull back in. There we are. There we go. So we've got our coffee and we've got our reflection in now. There we go. Okay. I've finished fiddling there. To leave that as it is. I just want to just darken this to put one more layer over here. By just adding transparent layers over and over, it will ever so gently intensify. It's a really safe way to build up your shadow. That's it. So if you want it just to pop just a little bit more, you can keep just adding these shadows to it. Just mixing these together now. Just want a little sharp edge on that. There we go. That edge there, because it always dries a bit lighter, so sometimes you have to go back in. Okay, I think I'm happy with that. Now we need to look at the colours for the tray, the outer tray, and all of these lovely folds and shadows that we've got to play with the paper napkin. So my water currently looks like this, so take a quick break here. Let's change all of our water, everything. Let's have fresh water. Just cover up the work for a moment so I don't splash it. Let's have a bit of a play. Now we've got some fresh water, so I'll use this on the side. Right, now I'm thinking ultramarine blue, really watery, is going to be lovely for the napkin shadows. It's nice and bright and it's giving us a nice pop of different colour. So let's have a variation on that. So if we add a little bit of brown into that, that will cool that down a bit more. So should we go with umber or burnt? Let's go with umber, see what we get. So there we go, we've got a really nice rich shadow colour there, and these are obviously we've given us a nice mix of shadow tones that we can play with on here. So we've got the lighter where the sunlight's shining, and then we can go into this darker shadow underneath the croissants and where the folds are, and we can also have a lovely mix all the way along where the actual shadow, the cast shadow, is falling from the actual object as well, and we have all the shadows from our coffee cup as well, and then we've got the shadows of the napkin into the basket. So basket colour, what should we do? Shall we go with, we could work with the umber just on its own and then water it down. So we'll have it quite light and unfussy. I want to use the different brown because we want that contrast. We don't want it to look like part of the croissant, so we stay away from the burnt sienna because we've used so much sienna in here. I think that would be quite nice. Going to try and get some nice different tones on the tray as well. That's a nice study. And then also we can do a last shadow where the tray is casting a shadow onto the table. So much going on in this. Lovely tonal study. I hope you're doing okay. Hang in there. It's a lot to do, but you're going to have a really lovely painting at the end of it. Okay, so where shall we start? Should we do the let's do the tray first. I want to do the napkin. I'm itching to do the napkin. Yeah, let's do the napkin first. If I'm being pulled to do the napkin, let's do the napkin. Okay, so mix up a couple of different tones of the blue shadow here. So I added water umber into one of them, and let's start at sort of the I'll start up here. I'll start the lightest, most delicate shadows. We'll get those in first. We'll leave some of the actual paper as well. Let's get these light shadows in. So we've got nice sharp lines. Nice crisp line over there. And then I'm going to drop a bit of shadow in there as well. Sorry, Mabel's having a good old scratch in the background. Don't want that on my croissant. And then we've got some lighter tones up here as well. The light's really bouncing around and you can get some nice angular marks. So you don't really want it too watery here. Let's add a little bit more pigment in, just a tiny bit. We don't want it really bright blue, but it's quite watery. So let's just tone that down a little. There we go. When your eyes start to get a bit tired, take a break. You can always finish this tomorrow. I find as I get older my eyes get quite tired, and you want to battle on and get it done. Sometimes it's better to just take a break. We've done a lot of work here. We've been looking at lots I know my eyes start to go funny looking at the folds. So don't worry if you need to take a break. Drop a bit of that shadow in there. I'm just going to let that bit merge, and then I'm going to go over and do some hard lines with the darkest shadow. So I'm just letting some charge in, so we've got a bit of a mixture of shadows, but I'm going to be doing the darkest ones separate at the end. So again, we're laying a foundation. We don't have to do it all in one application. Okay. Obviously make sure your croissants are dry. That goes without saying before you go anywhere near them. You don't want anything running, do you? No. It's a bit forgiving. It's really dark in there, so. But still, we don't need that. Again, I'm going to do darker shadows at the end, so this is just laying a bit of a foundation here. They will get darker. It's quite nice to do these sort of mid-tones though, because it gives you an idea of how dark you're going to go with the last sort of layer. It's really nice to make all these defined lines. Now they're going to start to pop and lift off of the paper. Okay, let's just mix a little bit more. Keeping it watery. A bit more shadow. A bit more raw umber in there. Ooh, it's gone really dark. Water it down a bit. Test it. Yeah, we've gone really dark with that one. A bit more blue back in. That's better. You don't want it to go too off of the tone that you're using. We need to keep it that bluey grey, not bright blue. I'm going to put this shadow in here. It's a really lovely shadow here. Get this one in. Now shadows are always darker on the object that's touching like the ground, and then they get lighter as you come away. So if you just use some water and sort of create that edge, that's going to give you a nice variation within the shadow itself. Just drop a little bit more closer to the object, like so, and let it settle. That will dry really nicely. I'm trying to resist from keep wanting to go in. You have to wait. Let it dry. You'll get better marks if you let them dry. Oh, isn't that lovely? Just, it's so crisp. I get a real thrill when I do things like this. My temptation is just to get carried away with it though. So if you're the same, don't worry, you're in good company. It's very hard not to fiddle. Right, so I'm doing like the edge bit of the napkin here, and it's quite sort of dark, and then it has a bit of a gap. Let's give it some light there, and we'll add a bit of blue into that bit as well. We'll let that sort of merge together there a bit. And then I want, that's the edge of the napkin there. Add a bit of blue to that. Just soften that edge a little bit. I don't really want a hard line there. Just want a bit of warmth of blue there. Okay. A little bit of blue on the edge here as well. Okay. Make sure that's dry. We've got a nice shadow. Where the napkin's kind of folded, we want to get those nice crisp lines in. Oh, look at that. That's exciting. There as well. Put another layer over this. I might not need to mix a darker mix if I just layer it a couple of times with the same transparent darker wash. It could be enough to build it up to what I want. I want a bit of a shape there, I think. There. So I'll start to build some shadow here as well. Fill all of that in because that's sort of the shape of this. Make sure it's right sharp at the edges for it to be successful. And drop a bit more in at the base. Okay. Oh, isn't that a satisfying little shadow there? Love it. Except I've just come into my... No. Just came into the croissant a little bit. Okay, I might need to mix some more of this. It's getting very watery. So while it's watering and you're running out, look for the lighter shadow areas because that mix is probably perfect for it as it's starting to run out a little bit. Avoid your really dark shadows and look for the bits in between. And that'll probably be just right. I'm so sorry, Mabel, you're making so much noise in the background today. Oh, you're having a New Year's Eve scratch. It's New Year's Eve, it's New Year's Day as I paint this, so Happy New Year everyone. Which may sound odd if you're watching this in October or something, but it's actually New Year's Day 2026, and this is what I'm doing. I'm in my happy place. Okay, right, let that dry and then we'll have a look fresh, and we need to add some more blue, deeper blue, and then we're going with the darker. Oh, I've got a really juicy bit there, look. That's probably going to be done in one hit, so let's do that. That will let the other bits dry, so nice amount of blue. Get that nice and bold, not too much water, we want it really rich and dark. Definitely need to test it. See how dark that is. I want it even darker than that, you know. So I'm going to just add more paint. See how dark I can get that. Oh, yes. It really needs to be really rich. So, nice and sharp. In fact, what I'm going to do, because I'm a bit wobbly today, I'm going to switch to a smaller brush. So I put most of it in and I'm going to come in really close and I'm going to go around those edges with a tiny brush because it means I can get in sharp. You don't want to ruin the effect by not having really super sharp, neat little corners here. And your little brush will help. There we go. There, look at that. Lovely. That should dry nice and dark. Okay. Now while we're just waiting for those, what I'll do, now I've got my nice tiny brush in my hand. I'm hoping this will be rich enough. I just want to go into the cup without leaning into that I just did, so be careful. And just put some final lines in the cup like that. Just for that final definition, to make it pop. So just take a moment to go around your cup and define until you're happy, trying not to overdo it if you can. Sometimes just the tiniest little brush stroke can make all of the difference. I want to go around that edge for some reason. There, that's better. I haven't leaned it. No, I didn't lean in it. I've got a bit of a messy edge here, so I'm going to fix that. Be careful because the shadow might be a little bit damp. You don't want to outline your object. It doesn't help. You want to just slowly build up areas that when you step back it does it all for you and sort of just suggest where your edges are without really dictating it too much, because then they look a bit stiff. Okay, so we can, there is no edge here, but we know it's there because there's light shining on it, because we've got everything else telling us that that is the shape and form. But we don't want to go around that, for example, because then it will just look flat and boring. I'm liking how the little coffee cup has come together. He's done well. Okay, so now we've got to make a decision. Do we carry on with the napkin, or do we start to put the... See, this is where I always get confused which way is the best to do. I'm self-taught, remember, so I'll explain my sort of struggles as well, because it makes this a lot easier to approach if you're not being shown by someone who makes it seem like it's this impossible task. It's not. It's all decisions, and you can make mistakes along the way. I know I certainly do. What I'm thinking at the moment is if I paint in the actual tray with the first layers of this, are my eyes just going to get confused looking at all of these mid-tone layers, or is it better to do one area and then build that up a little bit of tone and then do the bottom, the surrounding, and bring that up a little bit? And that's what I did with the croissants. I was sort of listening to my gut instinct, because now that I've got this first layer in, the croissants are really anchored, aren't they? Yeah, I tell you what, I'm gonna go with my gut. I'm going to start doing the lighter layers on the tray, and then we'll build it all together at the end. The reason I'm explaining that is because sometimes I'm sort of thinking of who's following along with this as well, and it can get confusing when you're doing a tonal study because you can't see the wood for the trees. It just gets really confusing what you're looking at, and I don't want it to be. I'm trying to make this accessible. So let's just go in and start doing some really light mix of raw umber. Let's just go in and just start. Make sure this is dry. You don't want it running in. And then what I'm going to do, just rinse and dry, and just water it down a bit. That way we'll get a really nice sort of gradual blending. So you don't want it too dark in here to start with. So just come all the way around, and let's just do a really light wash in here. Get that first light layer in. So I'm just watering it down. I'm not pushing it all the way there because I want that to be darker than this bit. So we'll fill this in. This bit's going to be darker in here. There's quite a pocket here. Again, just make sure your napkin's dry. I don't really want any little bits of light in here. This is all the shade of the tray. And then you've got this little bit at the front that comes under, like so. That's helping, isn't it? Now your eye can see the napkin sitting on top. Okay, so we'll just fill all this in. I'll keep that the same consistency. So you've just got a nice application all the way along here. You don't want to keep going back into it and going over it. Once you've got a nice smooth layer, leave it and keep moving. Add a bit of water, not too much because you don't want a big back run, and then you just carry on. Just let it just naturally merge in with that nicely, just blending softly. Okay, that little triangle there is just a bit of light, so I'm going to leave that. And then we've got the bit, yeah, there's a little space with the napkin there where it folds, and that's the base of the tray we see, and then the tray continues over this side. I'd say we should keep this quite light, and then I'll put a shadow in the back bit there. Right. And now we're sort of on the inside lip of the tray this side. I think this bit's going to be a little bit darker. I'll go over that and darken it later. Right, okay, so there's our main base of our tray in there, and now we need to do the outer lip. So if you water it down a little bit more, because this is going to be lighter, quite light, and you can let some edges be sort of unfinished here. Let some light dance around on it. And then that's going to help the eye to push the inside of the tray down a bit. So there's a really watery, just a little whisper of it really, really light. There. So I've left a light at the edges just to let that bounce about a bit. I'll just fill this front bit in. This is going to be darker, the front bit. But let's just give it a base coat for now. Okay. And breathe. Okay, so we've got the start of our tray in, and we've got our very first initial tones. So we'll build these up gradually. But you can see what I mean by the layers. If you go in too dark too early, you can't do this. You can't build on it, and this is the key with watercolours, especially if you want to do botanical things like that. You need a lot of patience and layer, layer, layer. Okay, I'm trying to get there a little bit quicker because I don't like doing 20 layers. I don't have the patience. I just enjoy it when you get there a little bit quicker. This is dried quite nicely. That's about the right tone actually. So this richness here that we mixed up, that's what we need to go over these darkest edges. So shall we put some of the dark edges in? Oh yes, I hear you say, because you're itching to the same as me. Get those little, get those deep shadows in, because they're fun, aren't they? There we go. So we're going over what we've laid down just before. Okay, so we've just got our dark shadows in there. And we've got one big one in here. there. Okay, and then I want to pull this one out as well. Okay, there's a few sort of little bumps and shadows in the napkin there. Little creases. You don't do too much. I'm just going to give that a little bit extra there. And then we've got a nice dark shadow here, but I don't think I've got enough mixed up. So I'm just going to use what I've got before I mix more. I'm just going to use it as sort of a mid-tone in different places. So around the edges of the front of the napkin here, for example, that can be done for that. There's a nice kind of shadow in there as well, where it's lifting up. Is that dry? Start to put a harder shadow in here as well around the coffee cup. Okay, we can always darken it, remember, just using up what I've got. There's a little shadow there. Just where the tip of that is casting a little shadow. That's nice. Okay, just a few little ones here and there. Okay, so we'll leave that to settle. Oh, I've just got to mix for this one, sorry. Let's just mix a nice shadow for this side of the croissant. How dark it is. Yeah, that's nice. Nice and dry. So we can do a nice crisp shadow here. And then if you just take the excess off, so it's just damp, and just smoosh along the edge and get a little bit of a softness on your shadow, and that will just dissolve it a little bit more. That's nice. I just want to darken this one a little bit nearer the base as well. Okay, just drop a little bit more in that bit there because it's really dark in that recess. And drop a bit more in here while it's still damp. We can drop that in, that's fine. Okay. Okay, leaving alone. Let's focus on these. Water's a bit murky, but that's okay because it's quite dark what we're doing anyway. Right, so we need just dark raw umber shadow, don't we? Which really is the same as what the croissant shadow is. With just more blue in it. Sorry, more brown than blue. Okay, so we've got some really nice dark tones there. I'll put it in the darkest bit first, and then we can work backwards from there as we sort of lighten it for other areas. Charge in a bit more. will help that to dry a bit richer, a bit stronger. So come down the side of the napkin. Okay, so let's work our way around the tray. I'm going to be adding either a bit more diluted from the middle or at the edges, picking up a little bit richer and charging it in. Let's go around the tray and add in our shadows. I'll play a little bit of music here. So we are on the home stretch. All we need to do now is to put a very pale wash for like a table. So I'm just using a bit of the burnt sienna that was left in my palette, just adding a little bit of ochre to this, really watered down. And I'm just using a big brush just to give the suggestion of a table. I'm not going to do it to the edges of the paper because I don't want the focus on it. Literally, I'm just putting the bare minimum brush strokes on. Nice and watery. Get this corner in. And then just sort of let it wash away to fade away there. And then you need to let that dry, and then we can put a lovely cast shadow from the tray onto the table there, and that will confirm where our light source is coming from. And that's it. And then you literally have your final details, any titivating you want to do, any last little shadows. So I'm going to do that while I'm waiting. I've got a little bit of blue here. There's just a few little pops of colour I want to do. Slightly warmer blue. Take a little excess off and just a few little pops of colour here and there to lift areas. Not too much, don't get carried away. I move that dirty water because I keep wanting to go into it. And you can just soften some of those lines as well, just so you've got a bit of colour there but not too stark. Just strengthen a few shadows if you want to. And you can sort of sharpen areas to sort of accentuate the folds in the napkin as well. Got quite a nice dark shadow here. I might just add a little bit on the sides of the tray here, just to increase the depth of the tray. Just warm those sides up a little bit. It's easy to see now that everything else is dry, where you might just want a little bit more. We're just finishing touches now. Oh, random pencil falling off my desk. Okay, just warm that up a little bit there. Okay. Just slightly warm up the rim a little bit. Mine's a bit pale. And that's the beauty of it though, is as you come in at the end you can just add things back in, but if you've left yourself that space by not overdoing it before, then you've got this option, you see, to go in. If you're finding that yours is quite overworked, don't worry, classic beginner issue, we can work on that. The key is sort of looking at your work and thinking, right, what bits do I like and what bits don't I like, and figuring out what it is that's caused that, and that's how you move on. I'll just strengthen this bit here as well, because that is more shadow. I'm just going to warm that up a little bit, because I'm going to do a nice shadow underneath, so I want all of this to be nice and warm actually. Fill the whole bit in. We're nearly there, guys. Let's fill that whole bottom bit out in. And just to point out, I've got a bit of an awkward bit on my paper here. It's some kind of residue that's on the paper. Sometimes this happens. You can get a lovely block of paper and everything's fine apart from one sheet. You don't know why. Something in the production of it, or just it could have been my eraser putty rubber, how it's come off, but there's a bit of resistance. It just doesn't want the paint to go over it. So sometimes you just have to work around an area like that. But I'll just point it out because you will probably come across that at some point and you think, why have I got a weird bit? Sometimes it's just imperfection in the paper. Okay. Right, this is when you should stand up and look at your work from a distance because you'll get that bird's eye view that will help you know where you need little details and where you need to leave it alone. Just want to put that little edge on the napkin there. That's it. I think we're done. We just need to do this shadow and we need to put some lines. I'm going to use some of this burnt sienna that I've got here just to suggest that it's on like a table, so you've got a bit of wood panelling, something like that. Just really simple, not detailed, just a little suggestion. Okay, so that helps it to create some depth. It's gone into my tray, I don't want that. Okay. That's it, that's a bit of dust. Okay, so we're now going to do this shadow. I've got a really nice fat brush here which I'm going to use. So what do we want? Let's go for, now the tray itself is raw umber, isn't it? So we'll mix up some umber. It can be sort of watery. You don't want a really hard line here, I wouldn't say. Let's go for a bit of ultramarine blue. I might even add a little bit of red into this as well. Okay. Now you can stand up to do this if it's easier. I normally do, to be honest. It's a bit difficult where I am at the moment, so I'll just do it this way. And bear me 1 second, just moving something out the way. I'll get out the way there. And then load up your brush. Get a nice sharp corner to start with and then just sort of go for it. Decide where your line is going to be. Okay, and then rinse and dab and then just catch the edge of it to soften. Again. We'll just let it travel a little bit and your shadow will dissolve a bit. And then drop that shade in at the edge just to intensify that a bit if you can. If you've got enough, I haven't really got enough. I can pinch a bit from here. It's a very similar colour. There. I'm not going to overfuss. It needs a little bit darker. It does need a bit darker. So let's just trying to richen it up a little bit with the red. Thirsty brush. And then knock it back with the blue. There we go. There's a nice shadow. There, you want it that kind of richness. That's it. And I don't want to mess with it anymore because that's drying really nicely. So don't mess with where it's where it's settling, but you can charge in a bit more just at the edge because it's nice and damp, and that will just strengthen that edge for you. But you won't get a hard line because it's damp enough that it's going to soften and travel a little bit, and that will be fine. Just make sure you've got a nice sharp edge on your shadow there. Again, make sure you get enough there. Nice sharp edge. And that's it. I'm going to call mine finished there. I've really enjoyed painting this with you. Thank you so much for making your way through it to the end. We've talked about lots of stuff there, an awful lot about building the layers and the importance of the first layer so that we can then build. And hopefully this has helped you to sort of control your tones, and you can see how it can all crisp up together at the end as long as you leave it to dry and know when to sort of charge in and strengthen things while they're still damp. So it's a little bit of just balance really, watercolour, but once you get the hang of it, it's lovely. And look at this lovely picture we've created. It's making me feel like I want some coffee and croissants now. Thank you so much for painting with me, and I will look forward to seeing you in another video. Take care.